Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alen.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Well, welcome listeners to the Next Man Up podcast. We are excited that you have joined us once again. We are about raising up the next generation of men of faith and of character and equipping fathers for this significant and honorable task. And we're excited that you have joined us. And I am always excited to share the microphone with my friend, my colleague, my brother from a different mother, the one and only Alen Auguste. Alen, welcome in. It's
What's up, Mark?
It's a pleasure as always to be with you on the mics again.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, man. Glad to be in the conversation, dude. How you been?
I've been good. Yeah, I've been good. You know, a lot of things going on in my world, and if we had more time and more interest from the listeners, we could unpack all of that. You know, there's challenges, there's stretches, there's messiness, as we've talked about in the past. But I'm in a good place, and I'm on a good journey right now, and I'm excited to just be able to share some of that dad stuff with with the other dads that are listening in.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. Interesting. Same way. It's funny, man. It's like, when I was younger, I couldn't care less about time and what I was doing.
Right.
When you get older, it's like, you look at adults when you're younger, you're like, what is your problem? Why are you like always moving? Why are you always doing something? What do you mean you have to? And then you get older, you're like, oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
I totally get it now, with marriage, with family, with friends, with work, with, things that I'm passionate about. And it's like, wow, dude, my world moves really fast, but it's always good to find a spot to land and have a good conversation with you and invite others into it. So let's roll.
Yeah. You mentioned just having a conversation. That's how we started this thing. And by the way, I don't know if you realize this. I was looking at my calendar earlier today because I was thinking, it feels like we have been recording these episodes for about a year now. And Sure enough, it was March of last year that we put ourselves in the studio and we said, we're going to start a conversation around topics related to manhood and raising up men and fathering and all of that. And here we are. The conversation is still going, and it's been a good ride. It's been a good journey, and who knows where it's going to go from here. But it's been a good conversation, and it's the timing, I think, has been good too. If you look back in all of the things that have happened over the last year, just wrapped up in this phrase, "Me Too," right? Like all of the attention and the exposure that men and masculinity and all that is getting. It's it's a privilege to have a voice in this conversation.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, to those who've been listening for a year and for those who've joined in along the way, happy birthday, NMU.
Yes, I should have brought some candles and a cake and well, I'll have you sing. I don't think listeners.
No,
you could rap. You could rap it,
cat.
Right? You could.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? I have yet to find a good happy birthday rhyme. They all sound cheesy and dorky. So I'll save the audience.
Okay.
I'm having to endure.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to share this just because it was something fun in my experience and in my dadding with my son over the last week or so. Probably many of our listeners know that I while living in Central Ohio, I am a fan of the University of Michigan. When it comes to collegiate athletics, my loyalties lie in the state up north, and I'm happy with that. However, it's been a long time since I've been able to watch a home game. I catch Michigan now and then when they're competing here in the Columbus area, but it's been years since I've seen a home game. And so my middle son and I and a couple of our friends that happen to be Buckeye fans, we piled in a car. We did a road trip last weekend to Ann Arbor to catch a Michigan-Ohio State hockey game. And dude, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. We won't make this conversation about collegiate athletics.
We could,
but we could,
but we won't.
We could. That's too easy. But it was so much fun for me. It had been 20 to 25 years since I'd been on campus for a sporting event. So just being up there for a game was a lot of fun. It was like being a kid again. And just the memories that came back being in that arena and all the history from when I was a boy. And then to be able to share that with Andrew, you know, he is a different person than my oldest. And so his language is activity and doing things together. And so this was a fun road trip, and the crew that went with us had a blast too.
Okay, cool, man.
And Michigan prevailed. It was it was a fantastic game. There was so many cool moments in the game. I lost my voice. It's been a long time since I've been able to do that. And it was good to be in the majority, you know, instead of in the minority. I didn't hear a single Buckeye tune. It was all Michigan stuff.
What a change!
I should stop. Huh? So all of our Columbus listeners have just tuned out. I apologize.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes.
Thank you.
No,
really? Come on, man.
The point of sharing that story was just simply to say it was a really, really cool event that my son and I were able to do together, and you know, making memories that are going to last forever. And we'll be able to look back on that one years and years from now and say, hey, do you remember when? And instantly we'll be transported back. The emotion, the experience, it was just a really, really cool time.
Dude, that's really cool, man. That's really cool.
So I bet you're wondering what's on my mind to talk about today.
Yeah, I was waiting. I thought this would be an awesome, like, Mr. Rogers, you're sharing about your son, and all of a sudden we go into the land of make-believe, or in this world, reality.
There is.
So I paused.
Yeah, so there's a connection and a bit of a segue. But let me kind of tee it up this way. So I met somebody in the course of business this week. I met somebody who I did not know. So we met for coffee. And yeah, that's a pretty common thing in what I do, just meeting people for coffee or for lunch and getting to know them. And we were well into the conversation. And he said something that I found really intriguing. So this guy is probably in his late 20s. I don't know exactly, but let's put him in that millennial generation just for labeling his age and generationally where he is. And, you know, I was talking about some of the work that I do with people around just clarifying purpose and direction and leaning into a purposeful, intentional life of significance. And he said something that really, really stopped me. He said, you know, I feel like most of the guys in my peer group don't really have direction. They don't feel like they have purpose. They don't fit in. They don't really know where they're going. They're just kind of lost. And I think in some respects he was admitting that he can fall into that category as well if he's not careful. But what I heard was there's this whole group, and I don't know how many he was referring to, but let's assume that his experience is not just unique. But there's this whole group of adult males that are really struggling with where they fit. What is their role? What is their purpose? What is their direction? And, I didn't hear it from a coaching standpoint at that point. I was hearing it from this context of what are we doing to help raise up this next generation of men? And so I asked him a question I love to ask people, males in particular. I said, so when did you become a man? And I'm always fascinated by the answers, and it's a question that captivates people. And so I wasn't sure what he was going to say, and so he started to tell me a story of a number of years ago when he created this challenge for himself as essentially a self-created, self-imposed rite of passage, and felt like that for him was the point at which he crossed over from being a boy to being a man. And I won't go into all the details of that here. It doesn't really matter, other than he's in his early 20s at that point, and he's feeling like I need to do something significant that I can point to as a marker that says I started it as a boy and I finished it as a man, and now forth, I move on as part of the ranks of men. And it was just fascinating listening to him talk about this thing called initiation and rite of passage. And at that point, he didn't know any of this next man up work we do. I was just curious what his story was. And
sure,
I don't know his relationship with his father. We didn't get into that. It was at the tail end of our conversation anyway. And it was just fascinating to me that he had this inside of him, this need to cross a threshold. And so for him, he created it. But what I heard in his story and in his description of others that are around him is just this void, this sense of, I feel lost. I don't have direction. I don't know where I'm going. And I couldn't help but think that at least in part, it's because we haven't passed the mantle of manhood on to the generation that's coming behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting that there's this like thing that's in this man that you were talking to that he was like, I have to come to a place where I inside know that I am a man.
Yeah.
And he created his own initiation like thing. That says a lot.
Yeah.
And it was just him, we can't, it's not a survey of millions of people. It's just one person, but it speaks to like what we've been talking about, or the conversation that we started, and really, I don't know, it puts a good picture of like, look, this is not just something you think about when you're older, in your 50s, like, I'm a man now. No, it's like, this is something that is in us. We want to become men. Whether our picture of a man is right or wrong, there's something in us that presses towards that. Like I want to move towards that.
Yes.
And that rose up in him, and he created something. I think that's the piece that fascinates me.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have like, well, I don't know what he had, but it seems like it was something personal. It was something inward. Like from his inner that was like, I need this, I got to have it. And I'm willing to sacrifice for it. I'm willing to do something wild and crazy, at least in my mind, to like cross this threshold and be able to look someone in the eye and be like, I'm a man now. Like that's pretty incredible.
Okay, listeners, just a quick break. I wanted to let you know that there are still tickets available for our father-son event at the Amaze Escape Room coming up on Saturday, March 30th. If you are interested in being part of this fantastic event, you can get all the information you need on our Facebook page at The Next Man Up 1 or on our website, thenextmanup.com/events. This is going to be a fun time to connect with your son, to connect with other fathers and their sons, to do the escape room adventure, as well as to lean into what it means to be a man and help raise up the next generation of men of faith and of character. So if you're interested, we would love to see you. Again, the website is thenextmanup.com/events or Facebook page at The Next Man Up 1. Get yourself registered, purchase your tickets, and we will see you on Saturday, March 30th. Okay, now back to our episode. Yeah, and I think, you said it. This is one person, and it's kind of an anecdotal type of information, but it reinforces what I believe to be true, which is at a relatively young age, there is something that stirs in boys as a desire to reach toward manhood. And probably can't put words to it at 8 or 10, probably may not even be able to put words to it at 16 or 18. But there's something, generally speaking, there's something inside of boys that wants to know that they have become a man. And, historically, we've had other ways to prove that. You take your place in the family business, or I'm thinking of, we were even talking about this, just agricultural, the agrarian society where boys began to take greater and greater responsibility on the farm. And as that responsibility grew, they grew closer and closer to what the father or the other men were doing, their responsibilities. And so there was this clearer progression back in the day. And I'm not pining for the days of the agrarian society and all of that per se, but it was a little bit clearer back then, the progression. And today it's not. It's very confusing. There's no clear one path, which gives us opportunity to leverage variety and the uniqueness of who we are. But without something, there's this void. And we can carry this void all throughout our adult lives and never quite know what it is. Or like this guy, we can attempt to do something, call it heroic, if you will, certainly challenging, attempt to do something to prove, okay, this is my line of demarcation. I have proven that I can do this, so therefore I am going to see myself as a man. And there's some healthy and some not healthy ways to approach that. What was fascinating in this conversation to me was what you had just said, he had this need, this desire in him to get to some place that he believed was equal to manhood. And without anybody in his life to guide him there, he tried to figure out something on his own. What a message to us as fathers of sons. On the importance of being that guide and providing this initiation process for our boys so that they don't have to wonder, so that they don't have to be 25 or 35 or 55 and still wondering, am I enough? Have I made it? Am I worthy of being called a man? Do I have what it takes? So on and so on and so on. We can give that to our boys through this gift of initiation, and it's so incredible and so powerful.
And it's interesting. The word for that's popping in my head as a dad is aware. To just be aware that be aware of the signs of this happening in my son.
Yes.
You know, there's, I'm such a, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm a weirdo, I guess, but I like to watch, I watch old school shows. So it was a show started in the late 90s and continued on through the early 2000s called King of the Hill.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, Hank Hill Propane, his son Bobby and his wife Peggy, and there's all these crazy like stories of this simple family in Texas, and and you know, it's this white suburban family. You know, the father is like, you know, he's one of those like, you know, straight arrow. I work hard, you know, Boy Scout kind of guy. And like totally opposite of how I grew up, but it just intrigued me, like some of the things that they talk about. And it was this one episode where like all the fathers were taking their sons at the age of 12 to go shoot their first deer.
Okay.
And how it was like a step. It was one of the paths that they need to hop from one to the next to get to a place of manhood. And you know, the wife, Peggy Hill, was really adamant. She's like, our boy is 12. He needs to go shoot his first deer. And the father is like, you know, Hank is like, you know, yeah, we're going tomorrow with everybody else, but I didn't get the permit. And he wakes up Saturday with everybody getting their rifles and, you know, their gear together and their kid. And he's like, I'm going to go get the permit. He finds out that he missed out on the permits. There were no more permits for hunting. And so he has to go home and tell his son this and his wife this. And his son is like, oh, okay. And he goes and does what a normal boy would do and just go play outside. And all of a sudden he just starts acting really weird. He draws a picture of a deer on a piece of cardboard, and he puts on where the deer's heart is. He puts like a fruit pie, like one of those Hostess fruit pies.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, the father is, you know, getting some coffee. He looks out the window and sees his son doing this, and his son goes over and like grabs a stick and throws it at this cardboard picture of a deer and a fruit pie, you know, duct tape to it, and he smashes it with his hands, and he's like, ah, and he wipes the what should be like deer blood,
right,
and his fruit pie on his face, and looks at his dad. He's giving him this homicidal look, like, oh, I'm gonna do this, whether you are able to bring me out or not. I'm gonna kill my first deer.
Yep,
like, you know,
yep.
It's like, it's like, to be aware of the signs that our boys are trying to find a path to becoming their own, to becoming a man, is so important, and to watch that and to be there for them, or else they go off the weird end. Like, you know what I mean? They there's a possibility, I should say weird, but there's a possibility for them to veer off into a path that's really not good for them.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they end up having to like go, like, you know, push the ball uphill. They might get there, but it's like they had to work so, like, it's just more difficult, instead of like us just being there with them, taking them by the hand and walking with them on this path and journey to manhood. It's so important for us to be aware.
Yeah, I like that idea of awareness, because it's as if, you know, it helps the father to realize it's in there. It's in the boy. It's going to come out. So how can I channel it in a direction that is beneficial for the boy and beneficial for the greater society, right? Because if left to the boy's devices, this will come out in some way. There's different ways that it come out. Some of them could be pretty destructive, but if fathers can just grasp this picture that it's in there and it wants to come out. We were talking about this a couple episodes ago, right? Like just calling out the man in your son. It's in there. It wants to come out, and just channel that in a way that acknowledges it and leads him down a path toward manhood that is more about character and the inner qualities versus, you know, versus smashing a fruit pie deer heart and wiping the guts on your face. You know, it's a funny visual, but you're right on. It's like it was in there, and the boy needed to get it out, and without that initiation path, he just did what seemed right to him at the time. It's just, yeah.
I chuckle every time I think about that episode, because I'm like, I don't want my kid going down that path. Like, you know, and you're right. It's not just this outer, you know, thing. I mean, like, you know, there are staples in society, I think, like, you know, of becoming an adult, of getting your permit, your driver's license. You know, some people would throw having your first alcoholic drink in there or something like that. It's like, you know, it's things that we talked about, like your first kiss or whatever like that. There's something deeper.
Yes.
There is like character, like development that needs to go on. There is the building of that inner man that if it's really nurtured really well, it blossoms and it comes out to the outer and affects society in a really, really good way.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to someone today in the educational system, and I was like, you know, like the kids in school are they're versions of me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had to learn to cultivate like this inner being. And like, you know, I just didn't come up from out of a rock, you know. I learned about honesty. I learned about truth, and I learned to trust. And I learned about like responsibility and being perseverance, and, you know, go down the line of the different qualities that make of your inner. And here I am today. But there had to be people like, you know, Ray was one of those people for me. I had some mentors who really pressed into me. And I end up being this man that I am today because some people were there to light the path.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to show me the way.
It's a process.
You know, it's a process, you know, and we can't expect like the blind to lead the blind. You know, we have to help our kids to make sense. In this case, our boys, to make sense of this path.
Yeah.
And to help them so it doesn't take them, you know, until they're like 35, 40, 50, like you were saying, but that they can get it earlier, you know, and be able to grasp hold of this, of what is called manhood, you know, being a man. It is possible. But we have to help them initiate. We have to help them begin to walk that path out.
Yeah, that's right. You know, it's interesting. This is a completely different topic that we'll have to address and unpack in a different episode. But you know, there could be fathers listening that are like, I haven't even worked through this myself. So how can I pass this on to my boys? And that, you know, that's a real thing too. I know of organizations that are devoted to helping men, adult males, let's say it that way, go through their own rite of passage process because they never had it when they were young, and it's, you know, it is still working on them. You know, we can unpack that in a different episode, but
I love talking about that.
Yeah, because, you know, it's just something that's rolling around in my mind. Like, how do I pass this on to my boy if I haven't figured it out myself? And that's a fair question. But it doesn't mean you can't do anything. You know, there are things that you can do. And in fact, it might even be helpful to work through it with your son to be a journey for you anyway. like you said, just this idea of initiating boys. It's so important. The messages that our boys are getting today are so confusing. There's no clear path to manhood. There's not even a clear definition for manhood. And we're not necessarily advocating for a one-size-fits-all definition, but we are advocating for something that is character-based, inner-based, and sets the bar high, and then helping boys to be able to see it and to begin to grasp at it. That's this initiation process, at least at a high level that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff.
It is good stuff. So thank you for my contact earlier this week and the inspiration. If you ever get a chance to listen to this episode, you'll know who you are. But it was just another reminder that it's a very important thing. It's a very powerful gift that we can give to our sons, and we can't just overlook it. We can't look past it, because it is influential in their development, and in, as we've said in a previous episode, in us creating that legacy that we want to leave behind. Passing that gift on to our sons is pretty important.
Absolutely. Thank you, King of the Hill.
Yes, the wisdom from the adult animation sitcom. Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. Truth is truth, regardless of where you find it, right? Like truth is truth. So hopefully we're adding truth into this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, amigo, it's been a pleasure as always.
Yes, sir.
Already looking forward to the next one and what we'll be able to enjoy. And listeners, we often close this way, but if you've got feedback for us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com, or we're now social. You can find us on Twitter or Facebook at @thenextmanup1. So if you want to engage us there, feel free. And we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Till next, my friends.
All right, amigo. Adios. Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. We would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.